So today I was just gessoing some wood panels and I thought it would be a great video to make and to add to my playlist starting oil painting. If you haven't seen that playlist yet, please check it out. It's everything we need to know when starting oil painting. Especially focus on the materials. I already gesso my panels, but to show you how I gesso my panels, I will gesso right now an extra panel to show you how I do it. For this, I'm gonna use a brush. So this is a synthetic brush that I bought in a hardware store. So any brush will do. I guess a minimum of quality that would be great. This is a synthetic brush. Again, you can use any type of brush for gessoing your panels. This doesn't really matter, but the cheaper the brush and the more chance you have for the hair to get lost and stay on your panel, so then it's a mess to remove the hair. So if you invest in a brush that is pretty good in a hardware store, like this one is pretty good, it will last you a long time, so it's definitely worth it to put $5, $7, $8 in a brush that you will constantly use to gesso your panel. So I will use a brush. I will use, of course, a wood panel. This is tempered hardboard that I cut to size. This is a 9 by 12. I will use also an extra board. I will tell you in a moment the use of this extra board. And I will use a gesso. This is a gesso made by Golden Acrylics, or by Golden. This is an acrylic gesso. So the main thing to know here is that there is two main type of gesso on the market. There is acrylic gesso made by different type of brands, and there is also oil primer gesso that is an oil-based gesso. This is great to use. Either or are really great for oil painting. The main difference is that the oil primer gesso, some of them have, I believe, additive in it to make them dry faster, but even if they dry faster, there will still be a longer drying time than the acrylic gesso. The acrylic gesso dries very, very fast, so it's very useful. Which brand you use to prime your panel doesn't matter, it's your own preference. Just to do some trials and error. I usually started by buying the gesso that were on sale, and then I quickly went to the gesso I like. So my favorite gesso is Golden Acrylic Gesso, but this is again just my preference, my own preference. You can use any gesso you like. So here are the 4 panels that I just gesso. I usually gesso 4 panels at a time. So here that's I already gesso the final layer, so that's the result of my panel when they are finished. Well, it looks great. I'm not sure it's totally dry, but oh yeah, it's not dry yet. I will just place them on the side to be able to gesso the new one. But this is how it comes. Usually you wait an hour. This is not an hour yet because I just gesso the final layer. That's why it's not dry completely, but that's the result you obtain once you finish your 3rd layer. I usually put 3 layers of gesso on my panels, and yeah, that's it. That's the way it looks when it's finished. And then it's recommended to wait 48 hours before painting on the panel, since the gesso needs to cure completely before you paint on it. I already did paint directly after it's dry without waiting the 48 hours. This is totally fine, but keep in mind that it might give you issues in the future, in the long run. So if you can wait 48 hours before painting on the panel, it's always better. If you cannot, well, you do your own test and you see how the paint reacts. But at least you need to wait that the surface is completely dry before painting. This is a mandatory thing. You need to wait that the gesso is completely dry before painting on the panel. So now I have my gesso here. I have a cup with water. I have my extra ball that I can place here, and I have my panel that I will gesso today, and my brush. So here, what's convenient to do, it's to place 2 pieces of tape on the back of the panel. This is just to ensure that the panel doesn't move too much or doesn't move at all when you gesso it. This is optional, but it's something that I found pretty useful. If you want, you can dip. My brush is already wet here because I just washed it, but if you want, you can dip your brush in the water. Do not put too much water on your brush, because then your layer will be too thin. And if your layer is too thin, then you will need to add more than 3 layers on your panel. You will make some trial and error, but you will see that in the end, at the beginning, I was using pretty much a good amount of water, and I thought that was a mistake, so I stopped. And here, as my brush is still slightly wet, I'm not gonna put my brush in the water. I'm gonna directly take some gesso here on the brush. And then the only thing I do is applying the gesso like that, roughly on the surface. The gesso does a pretty good job at evening itself. I don't know if that's a correct word, but the surface becomes even after leveling, I guess is the better word. It levels itself pretty good, so you don't need to pay too much attention to the way you gesso your panel. So here, there we go. I'm almost done with the first layer, and there we go. I usually like to do my brush stroke all in the same way, but it doesn't really matter, to be honest. That's it, my first layer is done. I usually cross the brush stroke, so I'm sure that the whole panel is gessoed correctly. There we go, that's the result. And now my brush is still full of paint, so then you can go in the sink. You wash the brush with water. It is very important to understand, at least with the acrylic gesso, you wash your brush with water when you finish. What I like to do, because if I go to the sink now and wash my brush, I will lose a lot of gesso here. A lot of gesso went into the brush. So what I like to do before going to the sink, this is why I took an extra board. I always gesso my board with an extra board, and then I wipe basically my brush on the extra board like that, because we don't like to waste paint, or we don't like to waste gesso. And you see, it goes a long way. So of course this layer will be way thinner than this layer, right? But this doesn't matter, it's just an extra board. You can take a spare board, an extra piece of anything you want to paint on. I usually take a smaller board, that way it covers pretty well. And I usually, on the extra board, I usually place more layer of gesso. So it can be 4 or 5 layers. But each time I finish basically my 4 panel, I always wipe off my brush on an extra board. That way it offers me an extra surface to paint on. At the end, you can see here, that's my extra board that I did before with my 4 panels. So when I finish, this one is almost ready to paint. I will say that it requires a few more layers. But yeah, that's it. That's why I use an extra board when I gesso my panels. I will meet you for the second layer. All right, so there we go. An hour, a little more than an hour has passed. So now the first layer is dry. I'm gonna go ahead and paint a second layer. So here I don't, as I washed my brush, after each layer you need to wash the brush in order for the paint, the gesso, to not dry and damage the brush. Now I'm gonna go ahead and take some paint without adding more water on the brush, and I just directly apply it on the panel. As you can see, the gesso is very something just very common, very easy. There's nothing complicated in the gesso. There's just a few things to know to make it right and correctly. And here, that's the second layer. As you can see, the 2 pieces of tape helps the panel to not move too much, even though right now it just moved. But that's okay. You just do it like that. And that's it. There we go. That's the second layer. Now, again, I'm gonna wipe my brush on the extra panel. And as you can see, it's very useful to do that, because instead of wasting the gesso, well, you directly get an extra panel to paint on. It can be for studies, it can be for anything, but you get an extra panel. Instead of wasting the gesso in the sink, well, you get that extra panel done. in the same time. That's usually good. That's it. Now I'm gonna clean my brush and I'll meet you for the conclusion. Well, that's it. It's very much all you need to know about gessoing the panels or any surface you want to paint on. You can apply the gesso on any surface. It will usually work. That's the panel you get when you apply the third layer of gesso. I'm not gonna do it on video because obviously it's always the same. You just apply the gesso on the panel. You wait at least an hour of drying time in between the layers. The time might change depending the temperature of your studio, but you just wait that it's touch dry before applying the other layer. Very important. Here, that's the final panel that you get and it's ready to paint. I don't size my panels. At least so far, I never size my panels. I apply directly the gesso on the panels and he always worked like that. One thing that I will say, it's very important to clean properly your brush with water. If the gesso dries on your brush, this is not good. It's gonna damage your brush. So clean thoroughly your brush. Clean properly your brush before once you're done gessoing your panels. Very important to have a specific brush to gesso your panels, not a brush that you use to paint, but an extra brush that you use only to gesso your panel. You clean it good and then you can use this brush for many years to come. That's more or less it to what's to know about gessoing the panels. 3 layers recommended, minimum 3 layers for oil paint. That way the oil paint is not gonna sink in too much or not at all. And that's it. Make sure to subscribe, make sure to comment, make sure to like this video, please. It really does help the channel and it shows the YouTube algorithm that this video is worth to watch by more people and it helps a lot. So thank you so much to everybody that takes their time to like, comment and share my videos, and make sure to subscribe. And that's more or less it I wanted to say about gessoing the panels. There is nothing complicated, just a matter of doing it, and that way then you get used to and it's just a habit to get. And yeah, that's it. That's more or less it. I'm looking forward to see you in the next video.